All right, so let's go to the official class material. It's 10 minutes after, which is the official class start time. This is CNIT 160. And all the information you need for the class is on my webpage at samsclass.info. There is a Canvas page, which I think a lot of you probably found, on the City College Canvas server. And that'll be used to participate in discussions and to take quizzes. So this class is a certification class. You prepare for this CISM certification. And so I have pairs of lectures for most of this class where I have a lecture from the book covering these topics so you can learn to become a security manager, which is a business a level of business, and you can get a certification. It's a business position. And then I have some discussions of how these principles are applied in politics and international concerns. I got one of them tonight. So from these other books, like The Perfect Weapon and The Shadow War and all these other books, talk about the consequences of these security decisions in the real world, which are why I think this class is of interest beyond just people who want to become corporate security managers. However, if you do want to become a corporate security manager, this certification is a good one to get. All right. So there's quizzes. You will have to make 2 presentations, 4 minutes long, where you speak on Zoom, or you can record a video if you like. And then you will have to prepare 2 papers, which are 500 to 1,000 words. And the paper doesn't have to be like super fantastic in the official format with the references and everything. It just has to be up to the standards of a business letter, spelled correctly, grammatical, make some sense, things like that. Not be just plagiarized, copied from somebody else's work, but about a page of writing on some kind of security topic. And I've got an article here of the right length and type you could look at as an example. And there are discussion topics. So there's a schedule for these things. When things are due, quizzes start being due next week, and then discussion topics, and then the topic for your first paper and presentation. And then we'll start with presentations, and then there'll be a paper due down here. And if you can turn things in late, but you'll lose some points for being late. And the asterisks here mean that even though I recommend turning these things in at that time, there won't be punished for being late until this time because people might still be adding the course, and I'd rather not have them add and already be late. So that's the summary of it all, and let's talk about grading, which is here. All right, so there'll be quizzes, presentations, papers, and discussions for a bunch of points. The point total might be a little bit off. I'll check and see, but I think this is pretty much right. And then so 90% is an A, 80% is a B, and 60% is a C. I'll have an announcement in Canvas in a few weeks listing how many points for each grade, so you can just make sure you get enough points. And you can learn extra credit points. In my other classes, I have hands-on projects you can do, but there is no hands-on projects in this class because it's a management class. But you can do extra presentations for extra credit, and you can also go to off-campus trainings, go to training events, of which there are a lot. Meetups, there's a group called Pacific Hackers. Last week there was a thing called Pancake Con. There are a bunch of events, and I list them on my website, the ones I find out about. If you go down here, there will be events coming up. Let's see, these ones are over. There's Hack Miami's over. Yeah, here's a couple of them. I'll have more as you go on here. And there, in fact, are weekly talks on Mondays and Tuesdays, I think. I'll have those up here soon. So if you go to any of those extra events, they're worth extra credit. That's another way to fill in if you do poorly on quizzes or don't participate in a discussion or something. You can make it up by doing other forms of extra credit. All right, so that's a quick summary of the class and the administrative stuff. So I think I'll just go to the first chapter here, and then after that, I'll pause and talk about issues like if anybody wants to add or anything. But I think we're not full, so I don't think anybody should have had to add, but we'll see. All right, let's take a look at the first chapter here, which summarizes what you're trying to accomplish if you decide to get this certification, what a CISM is. So, you become a CISM certified professional. This is from the ISACA company, and let's talk about how it works. CISM is a popular, important certification for people who want to become managers over company security policies, and it's comparable to the CISSP. I'd say it's about half of a CISSP in content. It focuses more on business processes. CISSP focuses a little bit more on technical issues. And I'm also teaching that class this semester. I think it starts on Monday. So it certainly is respected, and people can get jobs and promotions from having it. So it helps security managers and other sorts of executives like CTOs and chief privacy officers and consultants, especially if you become a security consultant, which is, by the way, a very good role for a beginner in this field. Well, not exactly a beginner, but it's the way a lot of people start out after they get some certs and some education. They become a consultant, and you get a ton of these certifications. If you're a consultant, corporations love to see that. So they will pay for the training, pay for the tests, and encourage you to get a dozen groups of letters after your name. And then you learn a lot flying around helping everybody with their security problems. All right, so in order to get this, you have to have 5 years of experience. To get a CISM, there's an ethics requirement. You have to pass the exam, and then you have to maintain your certification by reporting continuing education continuously to keep the certificate, and the same thing's true of the CISSP. So you register for the exam, you pass the exam, then you document your work experience. You'll have to have a resume showing that you did work enough years in a security-related field, and then you're in. Then you just have to keep reporting your continuing professional education and paying a fee, and you stay there. If you fail to do that, then you lose your CISI certification, and then you'll have to go take the exam again to get it back if you want it. Now, all certifications expire or collapse if you don't maintain them. I've got more than a dozen, and I'm in the same boat as most of my friends that have a lot of certifications. The only one I maintain is the CISSP. That's the one people really care about. But these others are good, and CISM is almost as good. So it's not a bad thing at all to get. So you got to have 3 years of work experience directly in one of these areas: information security governance, risk management, security program, development or management, or incident management. And you can substitute. If you have these other certificates or a degree, then you can substitute that for 2 years of experience. If you have a security plus or a few other things like that, that'll substitute for 1 year, so you can decrease the number of years of the other experience you need. And if you're teaching counts to some extent here. That's nice for university instructors. The ethics is very much like the CISSP ethics. They want to make sure that you are not going to bring disgrace on the certificate, so you have to perform your duties with objectivity, due diligence, and professional care. This means things like not taking on jobs you're not qualified to do, not cheating your customers on matters of billing and cost and things like that. Obey the law, and of course protect information. One big thing about being a security professional at any level is, like being a doctor or a lawyer, you are going to learn things that are confidential. Like the security policies and defenses at a company, you must, of course, not expose that. The whole reason they're hiring you is to protect that information. If you're leaking it, then you're destroying the whole point. So just like a doctor and a lawyer, the profession naturally means that you learn people's private secrets, and they're trusting you to help them deal with it responsibly and not just go blabbing to the press. All right, so maintain your competency. Don't promise to do things that you're not qualified to do. Give complete reports of your results, even results that your customers might not like. Yes, NDAs and non-competes. I'm glad you brought that up. NDAs are necessary almost everywhere. NDAs are non-disclosure agreements. Every time you do any kind of work for a company, you'll have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. I've signed a bunch of them, promising not to reveal the information that you gain on the job. A non-compete agreement is not legal in California, but in the rest of the nation it is. Non-competes are really nasty. Like if you work at Facebook and then you want to leave and go work at Twitter, you would not be able to do it because you're not allowed to move into a competing industry, which sort of makes you trapped. And in California, that's illegal, which is one of the reasons people say Silicon Valley is so extremely productive, because people do that all the time. They join a startup, then they leave and form a competing startup. But NDAs are absolutely necessary. I've often made my students sign them. I'm not doing it this semester, at least not so far, but in past I used to do a lot of research finding new vulnerabilities in products that had not been disclosed. and I would show them to my students and make sure they signed NDAs to not disclose it until after I gave the company a chance to fix it and such. Didn't Elizabeth Holmes get away with non-compete? I'm not sure. I know Elizabeth Holmes got her prison sentence, I think, or at least she got convicted. I guess she's not sentenced yet for running that fake medical device that didn't work. I don't know if she did non-competes in California. It's the first I heard of it. Read a book about her a few years ago, but as far as I know, non-competes are not legal in California. But you could, of course, put it in a contract. You can put anything in a contract. It's when you try to enforce it that the person could complain and sue, and you might not be able to enforce that provision if it's not legally supported. So there may be some exceptions. That's one thing. Whenever I say anything about the law, nothing is really that clear-cut. You really need a lawyer to look into your specific case. But I have been told that non-competes are not legal in California. So the certification exam is very expensive, like the CISSP, $600 or more. So pretty annoying. You probably don't want to pay for that. You want your boss to pay for that most likely. And it covers these 4 topics, which we'll talk about in this class. So you apply for the certification, you verify your work experience, and then when you get approved on that stuff, you pass your exam. You pass your exam, you prove that you have the required work experience. And then to retain it, you perform some kind of continuing education, like going to meetings like the RSA meeting, Black Hat, DEF CON, that sort of thing, taking a class, watching webcasts, doing self-study, reading books, It has to be something to fill enough hours of study in this topic because, as you probably know, security is a rapidly changing topic. So if you're not constantly learning, you become obsolete and worthless before long. So you have to be constantly learning. You can present at a conference, publish articles. You can't claim the stuff you get paid for work. You have to do something beyond what you get paid for work. But you have to do something on the side. That's why people typically give a talk at a B-Sides conference or something, which is considered the same thing. Lawyers have to do some pro bono to promote the business. It's the same story here. If you're in the security business and you're certified, they expect you to contribute to the benefit of, say, beginners that are coming up by teaching a class or giving a talk at a conference or something like that. That's the part of you giving back to the community. And as you see, participating in ISACA boards, ISACA is there's a San Francisco ISACA chapter, which is a security club tied to the CISM certification, among other things. And these people meet and they have training classes to train for certs, and they have, presentations from people on security topics and such. And there's the maintenance fee. It's not that much. And you can, in principle, lose your certification. I don't know of anybody that's had this happen, but in principle it could happen, just like a doctor or a lawyer can lose their certification. Rudy Giuliani, his license to practice law has been revoked for excessive lying in court. So the same thing here. If you don't turn in your CPEs, or you don't pay your maintenance fees, or if there's a complaint against your ethics and you fail to resolve it properly, then you can lose your certification. And all right. So that's the story of certifications. And I might as well do a Kahoot. If you haven't taken my courses before, you may be new to Kahoots. Kahoots are just online quizzes, and they are extra credit and optional. You don't have to do them, but you can get a few extra credit points. If you get in the top 3 score, you get 3 points, and it adds up with time. So it's a way to keep the students from falling asleep is really the point, because people tend to fall asleep listening to a lecture, and having an interactive thing is better. I learned this from the military, Cyber Patriot. They use Kahoots for their high school training, and I thought that was awesome. And I said, I got to do that. Yeah, of course, it's a way to review the information. Yeah, exactly. All right. I think it's an Air Force program, Cyber Patriot. I went to a training course, and I thought, this is really good class, because it's high school students in the summer. They don't want it to be boring, so they have a lot of cute, snappy things to keep it moving, and I really like that. All right, so go to this URL, kahoot.it, and put in that number, and you can compete in the Kahoot. Oh, it's too hot in here. All right. Give it a few more seconds to see if people are coming. All right. Looks like 10 is the number of players, so we shall proceed. All right, so what organization administers the CISM? Oh, that's ISACA. Good. I forget what it stands for. Information Security something or other. Anyway. All right, so who focuses on privacy? All right, the Chief Privacy Officer. Not the Chief Security Officer, that's security in general. It's the Chief Privacy Officer. All right. All right, how many years of direct work experience are required? Three years, directly in these fields. I think there was something about 5 total, but 3 had to be directly in these experience field areas. And how many hours of continuing education every 3 years? It's 120, and I think it's the same for the CISSP. And by the way, a course like this is typically worth about 40 hours, so it's really not asking too much. It means like one course like this per year would be enough. All right. So, Greg G. And YP looks like real initials. And Lawrence Mao, a real name, good. Looks like I'll have no trouble figuring out who these people are. So those people get 3 points for getting the high score. All right. So let me stop this recording.